Okay, hello, this is Alicia Sanchez. I'm in Bonnie Garcia's English 130241 class. I'm going to start off by talking about secondary sources. So, before taking this class, I thought that secondary sources were used to validate your opinion and kind of disagree with what you were saying in your research paper. In the beginning of the semester, we were given the task to find at least 4 secondary sources, preferably scholarly articles like the ones I have here. I actually had more than 4, but I'm about to get into why I have 4. So, in the process of finding secondary sources, we were given the ability to use these crap sheets, which helped you identify what was a good source or a bad secondary source. These crap sheets helped you look at when the article's actually published to see if the information was relevant, to see if the author was certified to be talking about the topic. For example, here we have that Laura N. Young is one of the authors for the article I chose, and she actually has a PhD and works in the Department of Psychology in Boston College, along with these other authors that were part of the scholarly article as well. After completing the CRAB worksheets, which was one for each article, we completed this. Oh, sorry. We completed this worksheet that helped us review and look over what we had found in those secondary sources. With this worksheet, we saw what was the writing purposes for the secondary sources, the claims, and what evidence they were providing to back up those claims, and if we found any gaps in those secondary sources. When I completed doing all of this work for my secondary sources, I actually ended up learning not only how to find scholarly articles through UTRGV, specifically JSTOR, something I did not know before, but more importantly, I learned how to integrate secondary sources without using the secondary sources to purely back up what I was saying. I now feel that searching for these secondary sources and analyzing them with these CRAP worksheets to find if they're reliable and if they're able to be integrated to your paper properly actually benefit the writer more than the reader. And I also learned that to not trust every single scholarly article we read because they do include gaps. And in order to find out what those gaps do to your research paper is what we're going to get into next, which is the research process. So we were told to choose a certain research method to fix those gaps that our secondary sources had, whether they be because they only sampled a certain group. Here we have that one of the secondary sources only sampled female and male adolescents, not anyone older, not anyone younger. Actually, before I had even started with this, I had never done research on my own before. So this was the first time for me to learn all of this. Um, I chose between a survey and an interview. I don't know why it's highlighted that I chose a survey. I actually did choose an interview because I wanted to have more of a personal connection to what I was going to be researching. Here we drafted how we were going to create this interview. I here generalized who my participants were going to be. I talked about how I would make this interview confidential. And here I drafted a few of the questions that I was going to ask them. I actually had the opportunity also from the time that I drafted the questions to when I tested them. And I found out that the order of the questions actually affected the answers I was receiving. And for example, if one question was, well, do you believe that artists are generally more likely to have mental illness? Well, then the following question cannot be, well, do you believe your mental health is worse than others? Because it would obviously be influencing that. After conducting my own research, I actually found out that it's very important to get more personal with what you're researching with. I feel it gives you a much more different perspective than someone who has never done their own research. I actually also learned that research is very meticulous and it's something that you can't just do the first time around and expect amazing results, which is why it's good to draft it and practice it with someone that's not going to be your participant later to achieve the best results. Now, for learning with peers. I'm sorry. Also, after finishing the interviews, we got to analyze and organize the data below. We got to compare and contrast. We got to see what connections our participants had. I had two, so I got to compare and contrast and see what differences each of them had, what things were not the same, what things were. And I also got to reflect on how this research was going to further help my research question and paper. So now finally, with learning with peers. So for learning with peers beforehand, I had taken English 1301 with a different professor, and I worked independently most of the time, and most of the feedback I ever got was from my professor, never from my peers. So when we were given the chance to give our peers feedback, I think it's something that really benefited everyone, or personally, it really did benefit me. We got to highlight and choose which sections of our essay we wanted help on. So, for example, this one that's highlighted here, someone would just come to your desk and kind of add what they thought would be a good answer. Here we have not only feedback from our professor, but also from students. And it just kind of helped give a better perspective on what the audience found interesting, what the audience would like to see in your paper. Also, having the ability to choose what you want feedback on and what you don't also, I felt, was more encouraging than discouraging, because sometimes you feel that certain points of your paper are at their strongest and you end up getting feedback that's suggesting you change it all. Another moment where learning with peers also helped me a lot was when we had to create a crafted solution, which was kind of our research paper in a different format, whether it be a website, a board game, sometimes even a video game online. I was put in a group and actually got the chance to collaborate with the people in the group and ask them what they suggested for my research. This research also, this craft was also accompanied with this video where we would explain our crafted solution. So I actually had my peers suggest to do a website, and I gave them a rough idea of what I thought it could do, and they actually suggested it in tweaks, so I would do more of a something that's not so much of a pamphlet but would give you direct information. If it were not for my peers, I don't think I would have been able to come up with something that doesn't just throw information at you, but instead gives you bullet points, and it's kind of interactive and helps you learn. Because of these two moments where I worked with my peers, I learned how to give proper feedback without it being discouraging towards the writer, and I learned how to actually take feedback I was receiving and apply it to what I was doing. Writing, I mean.